All right, thank you, thank you. All right, I appreciate it, Aaron. I appreciate you being here today, man. You're like I was saying before we started, you have some great knowledge out there. You're an interesting individual, like I said, and I just like for you to share everybody where they can find your stuff before I get to the first question that I have, because this is probably going to be a really good discussion for the both of us.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Appreciate it, Tyrone. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, again, my name's Aaron. I've got the channel, The Megalithic Mystery. You can find it on YouTube and Instagram and X. Also one of the co-hosts of the Breaking Ancient News podcast, which is a new venture that I've started with a few friends of mine. We're just kind of doing a semi-monthly wrap-up of just the latest news, podcasts, internet drama, articles, research, whatever it is regarding ancient history and the alternative history community. So it's a lot of fun, and you can find that on YouTube at Breaking Ancient News as well. Thanks for having me.
Right on. Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. And tell them about your tours.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. I always fail to mention that somehow, but yeah, I do offer tours. I spent several years living down in Peru in the Peruvian Andes in Cusco, and I just got a real love and feel for the area. And so I offer private tours down there. So if anybody's interested in going to Peru, um, we craft custom tours, and it's the same price as typically going on your own tour group. But the good thing is, when you go on a tour group, I feel like you get limited by the other people there, whether they are older than you, younger than you, in better fitness level, or out of shape, whatever it is. Cusco, Peru is at 11,000 feet in elevation, so it's a little bit difficult up there physically. So with these custom tours, we go through the whole list of places, and we customize and pick out the places that you want to go. Whether you're more interested in the nature aspect, they've got some of the most brilliant naturescapes over there, like the Rainbow Mountain. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Are you familiar with Rainbow Mountain? Have you seen pictures of that down there in Peru?
A little bit. I think I've seen them from you, I believe.
Oh yeah,
I think it was from you. That's where I learned it from.
Yeah, beautiful places down there. Or if you want to go see the ruins and Machu Picchu as well, of course you can't miss that. So yeah, megalithicmystery.com/tours. Send me a line and we'll find some cool places for you guys to go see.
Right on. So let me ask you this: do you know who this guy is, Josh the Ancient? From I think he's more on TikTok or something like that. He's on.
I've seen that logo before, and maybe I've seen a few of his videos, but I'm not super familiar with him.
Okay, yeah, he talks a lot about that area also.
Yeah. Yeah, Peru's crazy mysterious. I mean, everybody's on this big Egypt kick right now because there's some new potential excavations going on underneath the pyramid, and that the Khafre project that was researching or did those the sound imaging or whatever it was from the satellites to pull those potential structures underneath the Giza plateau. And I know that Matt Bell is trying to investigate the void in the pyramid, but that's stalled as well. But so like everybody's obsessed with this Egypt stuff, but like right now in Peru, they're actually excavating and doing work at Sacsayhuaman, at the one of the cultural sites down there, the megalithic wall that's right in the site of Cusco. And they're carbon dating the soil, and they're looking for the Chincana caves, the caves that run from the city to the ancient site. So it's really cool. Yeah, Peru is a hotbed of this activity, and it's really great that they're actually progressing the work there and seeming to come at it completely, or at least I shouldn't say completely, at least from a much less place of bias than it seems like the Egyptologists come from. So yeah, Peru is a fascinating place, and another aspect of Peru that I love is it's a little bit wild. It's not as structured. I mean, you're in a third world country down there. Not that it's dangerous or anything like that, but a lot of these places aren't set up to be tourist sites yet. So you can go to these places and put your hands on these things and frequently climb and sit and walk on these stones and touch these things in ways that like anywhere else you go in the world, basically, you can't do. You can do that right now here in Peru. So we don't know how much longer that'll last. So definitely get down there and while you can.
Okay, so yeah, and what's interesting is you brought up that a lot of people are interested in Egypt, and that's why I was telling you about what me and Dave are doing here in Georgia. We're going to different sites around here because I feel like just in Americas alone, there's a lot of great information. I mean,
oh yeah, definitely.
And the Ogmogi mounds goes back, not the mounds itself, but the culture and civilization in that area goes back 17,000 years ago, right? And then slowly they built up what they had. And then, I mean, you can find mounds all over, and that's my goal, is to go as as much as I can and give the local history part that's in our own backyard. You know, everybody's so fascinated with Egypt, but it's interesting that you brought that up because what I've learned is that Egypt doesn't even have the oldest pyramids. In many cases, the credit goes to the people in Peru, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Yeah, the pyramid at Caracal in Peru is attributed as the world's oldest pyramid. But
Mhm.
I mean, I think there's some dispute on that because you could call Gunung Padang a pyramid, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and I think they're still doing carbon dating of the soil there. So yeah, but the oldest one that they give credit to in the mainstream textbooks and archaeology history books is Caracal over in Peru. And I haven't actually been there yet. Surprisingly, it's kind of you have to travel there from Lima, and I think it's like 3 hours away from Lima by car. So I just haven't had the opportunity to go there yet because I've been up in Cusco mainly, where it's all the megalithic stuff is.
Okay, yeah, because yeah, that's what I've just read from my research is that in Peru they have the oldest pyramids, or at least that's where the credit goes to, or at least they're older than Egypt at bare minimum. That's
Yeah,
what the argument is.
yeah.
Um,
Well, that's really cool that you're doing that stuff with the mound builders here. The mound builders, yeah, they get swept under the rug a lot. I what I feel like
yeah,
with when people talk about, like, especially the history of America, like those people go completely unmentioned, and I really think that's because we have, like, obviously they didn't have any written language, whoever built them, so there's no documentation of who their society was, how far it stretched, how coordinated it was. So it's really fascinating that, just kind of gets left out because some of these things are just completely unanswered. And I think a lot of it is because it is the earthworks. It's not these um like large stone structures that you can see and define. That some of these things are under the canopy and under trees and under bushes, and a lot of times you don't even know that they exist until lidar happens. So it's, yeah, they get overlooked a lot, and it's disappointing.
yeah, but that's why I say, and I started this because of I retired from the military. I was wounded in combat. I had to retire, and I had nothing else really to do except just trying to get over what happened, right? And then I decided, I had a lot of knowledge. I read a lot of books, and I'm just very fascinated by our history. And I always say that because if we, not one person can do research on everything, right? There's not enough time in the day, and we're not alive long enough to be able to do that. So we have to pick information from different people, and sometimes that information will be good information, sometimes it'll be bad information, but you have to be able to learn how to adapt to it. And you know, my idea of a civilization may be different than a lot of people. I've had numerous discussions about civilization. I've talked to I don't know if you know who Michael Cramo is, the author of Forbidden Archaeology. I've talked to him. Yeah, he has a really thick book that's almost like 1,000 pages full of information. He wrote it with another individual, but that person passed away. But he it's information about just human history, humanity's history. Just how did we start? Where did we come from? What are the theories? The other possibilities and stuff like that. He uses a lot of his stuff based off of respected books, um, stuff like reviewed articles and things like that. So he has information that he gives you to go research for yourself. So I wanted to ask you, and because of this discussion we're having, was what is a civilization to you? What is the criteria? What criteria is needed to be considered a civilization?
Well, I think that's a great question. I've never been actually posed that question before, so that's a great question. I think for it to be considered a civilization, you'd have to have multiple generations of people organized towards the same purpose. And I think that could be considered a civilization. I mean, that classes it as pretty small. I mean, you know, which in the time of, hunter gatherer tribes, there was probably tribes that were, 10,000, and probably tribes of, 2,000, 5,000, or several hundred people. And that was the beginning of their civilization, and it morphed into something larger. But I mean, you think of like civilization, it's hard to, like, you can't pin it on like, oh, do they have to stay in a location? Because you have nomadic tribes like the Mongols or the Native Americans that were, clearly civilization, but not staying in one place. So yeah, that's why I'd say it's just, a large group of people that's multi-generational, that establishes a united purpose. And that is what I would classify as a civilization. But man, that's a loose definition, isn't it? Hard to say.
So Lil Vibe says he agrees with you and says civilization starts with respect for self and others. So that what you're saying coincides with what he says, because you have to have a respect for others to be able to have something to move forward, basically, right?
Yeah, the unification and purpose, whether that's a tribe or whether it's a city or a nation or a country, um, is what binds those people together. Yeah.
Perfect. Because Margaret Mead, she was having a seminar or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, and it's not written down as this is something that they have written down as far as that they recorded or have her on some kind of TV or show or something like that. She was just having a regular seminar with some students and some individuals, and she goes on to say that I guess somebody asked her what something had the conversation of civilization basically came up, and she described a civilization that it started maybe possibly about 15,000 years ago, and it was because a femur bone was healed, and they could tell that it was healed and the person lived longer because they can tell what age that it happened and then how long they lived after that. And she said that it took somebody else to have respect, like Lil Vibe says, and or the basically the love and respect and honor and cherishing other people's thoughts and minds and feelings and stuff like that, that they took care of that person and that person was able to survive longer. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that begs the question of like, the etymology of the word, like, at
I
what
love
point do you
that.
become civilized versus what point do you have like civilization? And like the civilized aspect is to, take care of those around you, to not abandon your wounded, to leave them to die, and not to abandon your elders to leave them to die. I can't, oh geez, this is going to drive me crazy. I can't remember the name of it, but um, I was reading something fairly recently about this cave that they discovered in, shoot, was it South Africa? Where it wasn't the species of Homo sapien, but it was another species of upright homos, I think it was, but they had intentionally buried bodies inside this cave, like super deep back inside this cave, several 100,000 years ago. And so it showed like intention and reverence and respect for the dead, which, like those are definite markers of like being civilized and civilization. So yeah, it depends on how you classify it and what you classify it as. But yeah, that understanding and care for each other and that compassion for each other definitely is, the building blocks and something that is necessity in order to call yourself a civilized society or to have yourself as any kind of civilization. Shoot, it's gonna
Right
drive me
on.
crazy. I can't remember the name of that cave.
Was it on a Netflix show?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because I think I know what you're talking about. They had some bones on inside of a cave, and only a certain amount of group of people could go because the main guy that wanted to go, he couldn't go because he was too old
Yeah.
and too big. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it was
yeah, it was like a
Netflix.
very narrow thing. You had to like go down this thing, then up this huge thing, then like down
Yeah,
another passage.
I
Yeah,
watched
you
that
might have
thing
seen
like
the same
four or
show.
five times.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that was like I think that was like 250,000 years ago, if I can remember off the top of my head. I hope
yeah.
that's
Let me see.
correct. Maybe we can have somebody
Yeah.
fact check for us. But
Oh, I'll be looking it up while you're talking, just because I know exactly what you're talking about, because I remember watching that because I was pretty interesting, because see this, and I'm glad that you brought that up. And it's because of the simple fact that Neanderthals are known to be able to that have buried the dead, and uh, has a religious aspect of it. I'm not sure if you know about that, but they
yeah,
have burial. Huh? Say again.
I say, yeah, I do know about that.
Yeah. See, so that it's like, where do we start with civilization? Because um, you know you was talking about the Sumerians. You guys were talking about Luke caverns yesterday and stuff like that. And I feel like I'm I can say I'm an expert on the Sumerians, just because of the amount of time I put into the research and stuff like that. Like I've read everything from Samuel Noah Kramer to, I mean, all the people that talk about Sumerian history. I damn near have a library
Awesome.
full of their books, and I'm also trying to learn the cuneiform writing system myself, so that way I can sit here and try to see what I can validate. Even though I didn't, go to college or school for that, they have material where it could teach you how to do it. Then also AI will also accommodate that with its capabilities and stuff.
Yeah.
But what I learned is that the Sumerian civilization started around 3200 BC, and they say it's because of their writing system, and that's why they consider them the first civilization. I took a class from Bar Ilan University, and Dr. Nili Samit said, and I still have the notes from her class, that she said personally that it's because of the pictographic script, meaning that anything like how we consider emojis of as today, like me and you, if we know what emojis mean between the both of us, if we use the simple ones like a smiley face, we know that means something's funny, happy, smiley. It could sometimes mean deceiving, because people can smile and deceive at the same time, right? So, but understanding it was because of the pictograph script. And then I took another class, and I can never say this name right because I butcher it every time, but it's like Bibliotheca Alexandria. It's a class that I think it's like I can't remember exactly where it was at. It's in Egypt though. It's one of their main classes. It's supposed to have been like an honor to the Library of Alexandria or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I could get some of the information incorrect, but I took a class from them, and they said that the Egyptian civilization started around 5500. Still have the class notes and this teacher that talks about it, or the professor that talks about it and stuff like that. I actually think he had at one time a YouTube video on it, because during the class he told us to watch a video on his YouTube channel that explains it and stuff like that. But he says around 5500, and they say it's between writing and agriculture, right?
Yeah.
Now, agriculture can mean anything. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maize started it somewhere in that area also, correct?
Yeah. Corn, potatoes, tomatoes were all North American fruit, or North American vegetables, or I should say American vegetables or tubers. Yeah.
And see, and I bring that up because and it's so interesting, because here in America, we have the Native American history, the indigenous people, and we have now what is called NAGPRA and stuff like that. And I've actually, matter of fact, it's so funny, I actually have an Oxford handbook that I keep on hand with me that's on American Indian history. So I'm really deep into like American history, and that's why I'm very fascinated with so many different things. And I actually go to different museums and look at it. And I've seen where they took an artifact out and placed like a NAGPRA sign on there and said, due to NAGPRA regulations, blah 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 blah, we had to put it away. And I've even asked the museum, some of the people that work there, do they know where this stuff went to, and they don't really know. So I know the ideas of what's going on with NAGPRA here, but you said over there it's more open right now, right? Like it's more open for where there's not that many restrictions, correct?
Yeah, down in Peru, I mean the Ministry of Culture, they are slow acting in a lot of the stuff that they do, but they're in charge of everything down there that it deals with like excavations and archaeology. But they have great respect and reverence for all that stuff. And so anytime that there's new construction, you have to bring in archaeologists to ensure that they're not digging up any ancient sites or anything like that, or any ancient artifacts. But it's very unified. Like it's so fascinating down there. Like the Spanish people, or they should say the Peruvian people, they are, especially in Cusco, they're like this weird blend of Spanish colonial descendants and then native Quechua people. And then, natives from, the Amazon or the Aymara people from up near Bolivia. But they have fused together and they don't really view themselves as different, even though they do speak different languages. The like 50% of the population of the region of Cusco, which is like the state of Cusco, not necessarily the city, their first language is Quechua. So they're indigenously quite different, but they view themselves as all a part of like this Peruvian culture and this Peruvian heritage. So they have this great reverence for the old Incan stuff, the new Spanish stuff, and everything down there. So there's no division of people of like one group's wanting to preserve some things, another group's not wanting to preserve some things or keep things separated. They all have this great reverence and respect for it and this open-mindedness to it. And also because it really hasn't been like affected much by Western ideas. I mean, us crazy people like myself that think that the Inca didn't build a lot of that stuff down there. We're not detracting anything from the Peruvian culture. In fact, we're just enhancing it by getting more people to travel down there, as tourism is a huge, thriving, necessary part of their economy. So they're very open to all these ideas, and they're very open to doing research and excavations, which, as I said, are currently ongoing. And yeah, it's a fascinating place down there. I can't talk enough about Peru. I love it down there.
Now, I'm gonna tell you right now, personally, right now, as face to face as we could possibly be right now,
Yeah,
I'm gonna take you up on that offer on going on one of your trips. I don't know
let's
when
do
I'm
it.
gonna do it, but I'm definitely gonna do it. I'm gonna get right for that. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna
Absolutely
do
be a
that.
blast.
Um, there is it's interesting that you bring that up because the most important thing that I found that you said was that they working together to
Mhm.
share the knowledge for everybody, right? And then it's important to share this knowledge to people because withholding this knowledge, we're only just creating more problems because then people are
Yeah.
going to guess and people are going to create their own narratives and this, that, and third, and it causes problems. If you could just tell them what it is, then there wouldn't be no issues. I like the fact that you're at Peru because I know a lot of people who do their expertise in Egypt. I know people who do their expertise in Gobekli Tepe. I know people who has their expertise, in the Americas. But now and now I know you and Josh, and that's why I was bringing up this guy right here, Josh, because this guy would probably be somebody that you could talk to. I met him at Cosmic Summit,
Oh,
and he was
awesome.
handing out at these booklets and stuff like that. And he's a very educated guy. He has it's called Josh the Ancient, and I think he's on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. And he talks a lot about the Americas like you do, and it's very interesting that you know there's an idea. I talked to. Do you know who Michael Donnelly is?
No, I'm not familiar with Michael Donnelly.
Okay, because he has this idea about Atlantis, where Atlantis is at, right? And
Yeah.
it's a very solid argument on where is it at. He's going to be coming out with a series, and he's going to be promoting it. He shared a little bit of it at at Cosmic Summit, and it's very interesting. And he has his idea of where it's at over near Cadiz in that area over there. But there are people out there who believe that Atlantis is the Americas, right?
Interesting.
Somewhere
Yeah.
in the Americas. I'm sure you're very familiar with that. What
Yeah. Well,
is your
yeah, they
feelings about
originally found that location in Bimini in the Bahamas that they attributed to Atlantis.
that?
So yeah, we say the question was, what was my opinion about that? Where do I think it
Yeah,
is, or if it's real?
yeah, yeah.
That's
Because that a lot of people say that it was the Americas, but they say North America. They don't know if it's Central America or South America. They just say the Americas, right?
yeah.
And I mean, you have you can't. There's really no distinguishing point of view of where is it at. If it's the Americas, it could be any three of that, or it could be all of it, or whatever. But the
Yeah.
idea that the civilization started in Peru, the oldest pyramid started in Peru, because the reason why a lot of people are contribute a lot to Egypt is because of those pyramids. That's the only main reason that people talk about that place. Of course, the Valley of the Kings and all that stuff, but mostly it's the pyramids. You don't really hear about any of that other stuff.
Hmm.
But
No, it's a great question. And actually, it's funny that you asked that because I'm actually working on a video currently. It's called Ranking Atlantis. And I'm ranking all the places where people have accused Atlantis of being and identifying different characteristics and factors from Plato and Solon's Tale of Atlantis that he wrote um, in those two books. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But so that's a great question, very relevant question. So I've got, let's see, the reshot structure, Azore
mhm,
Plateau, Bimini in the Bahamas
mhm.
is my only North American um, location, Malta, and then Portugal/Spain. So I've got those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. those 5 places listed, and I go through several different criteria, like, are there concentric rings? Is it on an island? Is it a large island?
Yeah.
Is it surrounded by mountains? Are there elephants? Was there an abundance of
Yeah.
gold? Is there copper there? So I have this all, correlated here. So I'll be throwing that out. But it really seems like to me, after reviewing all this evidence, I'll give you guys a sneak preview here for my upcoming video. But it really seems like the place that has the most correct physical identifying characteristics is the reshot structure over in Western Africa. It's kind of a toss-up between reshot and the Azore location. But the one downside of the reshot structure is it's not an island. And it's not a large island. It's not described as being a large island. Or like the one downside of the Azore location is it said that there was surrounded by mountains and mountains to the north and an abundance of mines. So it's like if you look at like the Bahamas, which is, at Bimini in the Bahamas down by Florida, the Florida Keys, there's not a lot of mountains there, and not a lot of resources for gold. So I think that, based on the characteristics that Plato gave, I would discount that location. But I haven't heard any theories about anywhere in South America or North America, but I'm open to them because I can put them then on the list and, see if they meet the criteria. So my gut, at least, would say what has the most similarities currently is the reshot or West Africa.
That's interesting you bring that up, because another person that I met at Cosmic Summit and that I can consider a friend of mine now is David Stig Hansen.
Oh yeah,
he's a cool, and you know who he is. I
yeah.
talk to him a lot, actually. Me and him, we talk a lot. He has another great argument, like you said, right? And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I've been following Stig for a while now. I mean, a while now. But I just recently learned about Michael Donnelly, and I learned about him from Cosmic Summit. And when I heard his idea, I was like, man, now this is a toss-up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. Both Stig and Michael were both at Cosmic Summit. That's how I met both of them. I haven't released my video with Michael yet. I'll probably do it in the next couple of weeks, but we talk about it in in the video. And so he gives a good idea. I also know another guy, and of course you're on X, and you probably know him too. Maybe not, but his name is Cadence. And he knows about Atlantis. Yeah, he's not really, he has a lot of followers, but he's more of a quiet type of individual. And he gave a whole presentation on Atlantis to me. I have a discussion with him on my YouTube about it. He talks about the Azores and the Berbers and stuff like that. And he gives his etymology, because what I do like you mentioned earlier, you was like, etymology, that's my thing right there. Like, if we're having a discussion, before it goes left or right, whichever way it goes, I want to understand exactly what you're saying. So I want to say, hey, what does this word mean to you? What does this word mean to you? And if I understand what you're saying based off of how you're using your definition, then we won't have to worry about any disagreements. The disagreements come in when you're trying to create a new narrative that's not within the etymology of it is. And the reason why I say that is because it confuses a lot of people, right? You have to be honest with yourself. A good example of that is mythology. You look up the word mythology or myth in the dictionary, and I think there's like so it's different dictionaries for Webster, Oxford, so on and so forth. So there's different amount of different definitions for us for that. And you can look at it like for civilization, you'll have, I'm gonna go back to mythology. So with mythology, it means a traditional oral story, or it can mean something like fiction, or it can mean something just depending on it. But those are the two that I know. And I know the first one in the Webster's dictionary that I have, the first definition is traditional oral story. And then the second one is fiction, a fictional story. That's what it says. So you have to be able to say your argument within those two definitions, so that way I can understand what you're saying. If you say anything outside of that, then I'm confused, and I want to be like, okay, now you're trying to create a narrative, and your opinion is swayed by information that I don't have, and you're failing to give that to me. So now we're just going to keep going back and forth. And that's why I'm glad that you used the word etymology, because cadence actually goes in and breaks down the etymology of Atlantis, like Atlas and all that other stuff, and breaks
Hmm.
down, what it really means and stuff like that. And the reason why I brought up the Americas as Atlantis is because there's a couple of books out there that I've read that actually talks about that. Doesn't give really good sources to say. They just say because of symbols and symbolism and stuff like that. But I mean, that can go here and there. But um, there's this, and I don't know if it's true or not, because everybody says that it was debunked, or some people say it was debunked. Some people say no, it was an actual article or a newspaper, blah blah blah. But the idea that they found ancient Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon gives me an idea that the Egyptians traveled, or somebody Egyptian-like individuals traveled here to the Americas. And I'm not sure if you know, but I've been doing a lot of research on the Grand Canyon. There's places there that you cannot visit. There's places that are, taped off from individuals, forbidden from individuals, and uh, sealed off for that matter. And there's a lot of history out there,
Yeah,
and I
get the
don't know
black
why that would do
helicopters
that.
called on you.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you
So,
seen those videos? Yeah, I've seen those videos of the people exploring there, and then like literally black helicopters show up.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
what's up?
absolutely. Yeah, I've seen, and that's why I bring that up, because um, that some people do say Atlantis was here in the Americas. So I'm not sure 100% where is it at, or if it's fact or fiction or whatnot. But just knowing that Peru has older pyramids than Egypt, there are pyramids in Sudan. There are more pyramids in Sudan than Egypt. I want to know, where did the idea of building pyramids came from? Because we do know that it had to start off with dirt first, which is mounds,
Mhm.
basically, right? Yeah, like it had to start with that, the most easiest way to do that, right? And then it had to go into, okay, well, we can start doing this out of bricks or stone or some sort and stuff like that. And they started doing that. Okay, so there are arguments that Sudan used to be like the classroom area building pyramids for the side of Africa, just because of the amount of pyramids that were there. Some people will argue that the pyramids that are destroyed there, or quote unquote destroyed there, were destroyed by people who ventured over there trying to find stuff, or that some people will argue and say that they were failed attempts of building those pyramids. Like, you can't just, you know, once they quabble, you failed your grade, and then that's it. I mean, they said there was. I've read anywhere from hundreds to thousands of pyramids in Sudan. I don't know how accurate it is, but I do know that they reused the stones that or whatever they used to build those pyramids there. But if there's a location like that in Africa, right, that could possibly be a classroom to building pyramids, right?
Yeah, that would be cool. I'm
Is there
not familiar with all the pyramids in Sudan. I'm gonna have to check that out after this conversation here.
All right, please, because my next question was going to be, and you probably maybe you'll be able to answer it. Is there a place in that area that has a lot of pyramids that could be like a testing spot, like your capabilities of whether you should be on a team of building these pyramids, right?
No,
Because
not.
it's like, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I was going to say, not with pyramids, but Peru has some other crazy stuff that looks like it was a testing spot for all sorts of like ancient machinery.
Okay.
If you go to like Ollanta Tambo specifically, there are cuts in the bedrock, and then it literally looks like a machine, like remnants of a large saw blade, water jet, or laser that cut into the bedrock in these crisscross patterns. So it and in places like this, it looks like people were like practicing doing other types of things, or like I'm sure you're familiar with like the stonework in Egypt that looks like it's as if been scooped out, like kind of carved and scooped out. You find
Yeah, like an
stuff
ice
like
cream
that.
scoop. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like those ice cream scoops. You find that stuff in Peru. So in Peru, there's not like practice pyramids, but you can find these like practice cuts almost, or what may appear to some as be practice cuts, or maybe they're just remnants of 20,000-year-old cuts into the bedrock that have been there and stuff like that. But yeah, there's stuff like that, but not pyramids. I think really the only pyramid structure that they have, I might be getting this wrong, is the Caracal pyramid, the very very first one. Uh, yeah, Peru's not really known for pyramids, surprisingly. Yeah, up north
Okay.
you get the Mayans and the Inca. And in Guatemala, you get some of the Olmec and Mayan and Incan stuff. But yeah, the Peruvians weren't doing pyramids.
That's interesting because the beginning of our discussion was about civilization, basically people working together, right? That's basically what we can boil it down to. And we know that there were individuals traveling from the Americas to, from Europe to the African continent, right? We know that they have that trading amongst each other. It's interesting that you bring up and say that Peru seems to have the machinery, right? But Egypt might have had the knowledge to build pyramids. Now, if these group of individuals come together and say, hey, we could use your machinery because we want to build this, and we can give you the knowledge how to build your own. You might not be privy and want to keep doing it, but this is something that we want to, and this is how the barter system works, right? Mm-hmm. Trading starts, right? We give you knowledge for your knowledge for this, right? Yeah. So maybe this machinery that everybody's looking for in Egypt might very well be where you mentioned it is in Peru. Highly it literally possible. Could possibly be, because the whole reason why we're where we're at today in our civilization is because of trade and the mixture of knowledge and sharing knowledge. Okay, we have gold in certain places over here, and we have more oil in certain places over here. We have more diamonds in certain places of here, so on and so forth. We're able to use those different techniques, and then everybody thinks differently. Okay, we might have a same concept idea of something, but we think differently on how things get together. That's why people say two brains are better than one, or two heads are better than one, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like now learning from you, and this is why I like your information, because you give a perspective of what you had on boots on the ground, what you've seen with your eyes, right? And you're honest with your information. And I can tell that you're honest with your information because you don't say, well, I want people to understand this. You're not telling people to understand somebody. You're just telling people, hey, look, this is what I've seen. And if you're and we're mixing our information up together. I have a piece of the puzzle. You have a piece of the puzzle. You say you didn't know about Sudan so much. There are like I've read different numbers. There's supposed to have been anywhere from hundreds to thousands of pyramids in Sudan.
Incredible.
And a lot of them were. Some people say they were blown up by this Italian guy looking for treasure. Sometimes they say they can tell by the marking on it, and then some of them said they look like they just toppled down, like they were just failed attempts. And that's why some people have arguments saying that that some of them probably were blown up, but others were failed attempts for our classroom, right? Because when we're in school, we get pieces of paper and we write on that piece of paper what the test is. Well, if these Masons, quote unquote Masons, whoever they were, and wherever they came from, they decided that, hey, they wanted to build structures around the world, and they had to, they went around and found experts in each field, from machinery to design to mathematical skills to anything, right? It could be anything that they was looking for, and they combined all that knowledge to build these things to share throughout the world. Now, what's interesting to me is that you said that the machinery, that part right there. So tell me what type of machinery that you think, if you could go back and think of how the archaic way of using a saw, a saw, a chainsaw would be just like a handsaw, right? That's basically the archaic way. So.
Well, here's what we're thinking about. So it makes me think of, that's a great question, by the way, Tyrone. Thank you. It makes me think of one specific example. Am I able to screen share here? Can I show you guys? Okay, let me pull up here on my profile. Or actually, let me go to my Google Photos real quick, and then I'll find this for you. And I want to screen share this one specific stone down there that looks like it has been cut. So give me just one sec. Got to look up Ollantaytambo archaeological site, and hopefully my Google Photos will pull up the right stuff for me. And it looks like they didn't. Okay. Now I got to think, okay, I was on that tour. That would have been February 2023. So here we go back here.
Yeah, there's just so many arguments on, what type of machinery people could use. And, they talk about diamond cut saws that can only cut, granite. But then,
Mhm.
you have naturally diamonds out there. How would they turn that diamond into a type of saw, like, or a cutting device or something like, how would they do that? It makes
Yeah,
you think,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, I found my Ollanta Tambo folder here, so now I just got to find the right the right rock, because this rock, I'm telling you, is absolutely incredible. Um, shoot, why can't I find this here? Ah, I found it. Okay. Do you have a screen share here, or how can I do it? All right, share my screen here.
yeah. Once it comes up, I'll bring it up.
Okay. Let's see. I want to share Google Photos. Okay. All right, we seeing this? Is that screen share working?
Yep, it just came up. There we go.
Okay, perfect. So what we're looking at here, if
I'm
you
gonna
can
make
see
it bigger.
this is at Ollanta Tambo. Now, that
Okay.
guy right there with the beautiful sweater, the Yama sweater, that is Brian Forrester. That's who I went on the original tour with. Uh, so this rock right here, as you can see, is cut. And the cut stops right here. I have a video of it, but I can't seem to find the video of it here in this collection. But the cut continues down through this rock here. Oh, there's a good video of it. Cut
Yeah,
continues
I
down
can
through the
see
rock
that.
here, but goes all the way through. And it looks like this piece has just like broken off. So at one point, so there's this top portion right here that was a part of the remainder of this rock. Okay. So that makes me think, okay, this is attributed to the Inca. And the Inca were a Bronze Age culture, but they say it's a Bronze Age culture, but that does not give credit to what they actually were. Bronze was the peak and the height of what they were able to do, which is, copper and tin. The majority of the tools that the Incan had were copper, which is even softer than bronze, and stone and wood. And then we have this amazing example here of this cut into this stone going all the way through down here to the bottom. And the Incan only had bronze tools, bronze chisels at the most. They didn't even have saws. And you expect me to believe that this type of fine craftsmanship, I mean, this is like, just whatever. We have no idea what this boulder was and what it was used for, but we can see this extremely precise, perfectly flat cut into the boulder that stops. So that's an example of like a machine mark that you find down here in Peru. But like, honestly, I have no idea what was used to do that, but I can clearly see that, like, hey, it was not the Inca. The Inca with their bronze and stone tools and copper chisels, they weren't doing this. So whoever did, I mean, this is the precision of, diamond tipped saw or water jets or, laser or something like that, but nowhere near the capability of a civilization that was, pooping in a hole in the ground, quite literally.
No, you're right, and that's why I said, like, maybe it wasn't these individuals themselves. Maybe it was the people that came from somewhere else. Um, it doesn't necessarily have to be that civilization that does it. It could be somebody coming in saying, "Hey, we can do this for that. We'll
Mhm.
build you a pyramid if you give us this."
Yeah.
And somebody will say, "Okay, do it," and they'll bring their tools and all their equipment, do what they need to do. And when they're done, they'll take it back, especially since it's tools that are very, very important. I
Yeah.
mentioned I was in the military. Um, if you lost a weapon in the military, man, they had a lot of people search for it. If you was on post,
Imagine.
no matter what, yeah, if you lose NVGs on post, they'll have the whole people scanning that area until they find it. Like, they will not count it as a loss. So
Hmm.
I would imagine the same thing with those people who are using iron like tools or certain type of tools. Now, this is what comes into play with me is the reason why I asked you about Atlantis is because of the knowledge to build those pyramids in Peru, Egypt, and all these other places. And you've been in Peru hands on by yourself. You showed us this rock, which is very interesting. I mean, it's damn near like almost just taking a string and just doing this against the stone, you know what I'm saying,
Yeah.
until you cut it off, basically.
Yeah, I actually found
Um,
another video of it if you guys want to see a better video.
yeah, let's see it.
Okay, let me share this again here. Because from the
Let's see.
video, you can get a little bit better perspective here.
Here we go.
It's clearly a cut stone where the cut stops halfway down, as if it was being cut with a water jet or a saw or a laser.
You can see just how
You
flat
can
that
see
is.
the clear line here.
Yeah.
It's perfectly straight where the cutting stopped. Clear evidence of lost ancient technology, not done by the Incas, who were using only bronze tools without any saws. It is clear.
Anyway, yeah, there's a little bit better view of that.
Yeah, see, I'm glad that you said that. That not from the Incas, because like I said, I like how you share your information. You're not saying it doesn't come from the Incas and saying that it comes from these people. You're just saying clearly it doesn't come from them. So who are these individuals that gave them this ability? And that's why I feel like, you know, the civilization part is communicating among each other, talking among each other, and the barter system starting, I give you this for that, blah, 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 blah. And I think I personally feel like you stumbled upon something on machinery, because like I said, I've always had this question, like I'm saying, like in Egypt, they always say, okay, you know, how did they build these pyramids? But first of all, those aren't the oldest pyramids. So we have to acknowledge that first, right?
Yeah.
So then the next question would be, so where are the oldest pyramids? Well, we have to go to Peru. Well, there's not pyramids like Egypt and Peru, but they have definitely the know-how to cut stone, right? And they have the know-how. Where did they get this information from? Or one, did they already have this information with the machinery, right? Like did somebody say, oh, I know how to cut stone, this is an easy way to cut stone, and somebody from Egypt said, man, we wanted to build pyramids, but they don't have, you know, first of all, it's kind of hard to build pyramids in that area than it is, you know, that they have over here, because it's sandy over there. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan. I can tell you in certain places you don't want to build certain things, and most of their cities are in beautiful places, but some of the places that they considered like their ancient places is really not livable for some places. I mean, Baghdad is, which is considered, you know, where the Sumer is and stuff like that. In Babylon and so on and so forth. But what I mean by like the people who were like the farmers and stuff who lived in the desert and stuff like that, they're literally, I've seen people live like how they lived 1,000 years ago. The term in the military was mud huts, because they, you know, they build it out of mud and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So if they've learned that they could build pyramids, if the Mesoamericans, if somehow depicting the Egyptians came to the Mesoamericans and said, hey, we can build pyramids like this. This is how we do it. This is our writing system is from this tablet that we're showing you. We can do this if you bring us corn, because they say corn is in Americas is older than it is in Egypt. That's what the argument is, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, right? Yeah, see? So maybe they was like, hey, we want some of that corn. So if since you're agriculturally good with this corn, you give us knowledge how to grow this corn and we'll build a pyramid.
That seems a fair trade to me.
No, but you know, seriously though, I really
something along those lines for sure.
Yeah, I think it's something along that line. So I scratch your back, you scratch my back type thing.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've been following your work for a while. And
Thank you.
I want to say, at least, yeah, you're an interesting individual. And like I said, shout out to Dave and Cody out there, your two new co-hosts that y'all got a show going to. So explain that real quick about what you guys are going to be doing, because I know Cody has his thing. He does a little bit of ancient Sumer, what you talk about, and so on and so forth. I know Dave does the same thing, but he also does local history like I do and stuff like that, and UFOs and so on and so forth. How do you implement the UFO portion that Dave has into your show?
That's a great question. So on the Breaking Ancient News show, we're staying away from the UFO stuff at the moment. unless it has like direct tie towards, ancient history, that kind of thing, which some of them do, like the 3-Eye Atlas event. We've talked about that twice now, but that's like very significant because all cultures historically paid extreme attention to the cosmos and were potentially even wiped out by the Younger Dryas impact if that was a celestial event. So we tied in a little bit, but with the breaking ancient news, where the point of the show is really just to keep everybody caught up on what all is happening with the ancient history community. Because I feel like, and I'm sure as you do, there's so many podcasts that are coming out. There's so many content creators.
Yeah. Everybody want to be known too.
Yeah. But it's just, and so many people that are doing like such good work, including research papers and, paying for studies to be done. So it's like, it's hard for one individual to stay up on all of that. So we want to do this podcast where every 2 weeks, each of us kind of gathers the things that we're interested in talking about that relate to this. And we all kind of bring it up and share with each other just some of the new exciting things that are happening in this community. So that's the whole point of the show. So every 2 weeks, go to Breaking Ancient News on YouTube and watch it. We just had a last episode last Sunday, bunch of fun stuff on there, including the, as I said, 3-Eye Atlas and Luke Caverns and Michael Button and Matt Bell and a whole bunch of other creators. So it's a great way to like get your hands into discovering more about all sorts of different topics regarding ancient history.
That's interesting you bring that up. And the reason why I'm glad I'm asking a good question, I'm glad you're letting me know that I am. The reason why I asked you about the UFO part about is because what is it? I think it's Cusco, if I'm not mistaken, Peru, right? Mm-hmm. That's how you say it. So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that's the location Giorgio Tsoukalos says that ancient aliens actually built that place. Like that's the one place that people, that aliens possibly built it. And
possibly.
Wow, you said it. So why do you say possibly? Because I was about to expand on it, but I didn't know how to start it. But yeah. Go ahead.
So that's a great question. I wouldn't say necessarily aliens per se specifically, although I'm keeping that as a possibility. I think lots of other things are much more likely. But I always think when I go to Sacsayhuaman, now if you're not familiar with Sacsayhuaman, it's the where they're doing the excavations currently. It's the large megalithic wall that's just above the city of Cusco. It's like the main feature of Cusco. It's this huge limestone wall that's a polygonally cut stone, some of which are 40 tons to I think 40 tons is the biggest, but these are massive stones fit together with precision. And so I think to myself, I've been there half a dozen times, more than a dozen times. When I get there,
so
go ahead.
I'm sorry, it wasn't Cusco, it's Pumapunku. That's what he said.
Oh, Pumapunku. Okay, yeah. Pumapunku is also very interesting because that is like in these incredibly precise stones cut to right angles. Yeah, but still, Pumapunku proves the exact same point, and I can make that same point that I was going to make with Sacsayhuaman because it's the exact same thing, which is
that's good.
Yeah, if you Tyrone, you said to me today, hey, I want you to go build the Empire State Building. You told me that. I would say, you know what? That's a tough task, but I could do that. If you said to me, I want you to go build the Roman Colosseum using the tools that the Romans had and using, the materials that the Romans had. I'd say, okay, that's going to take me a long time, but I can do that. All the information's there. All the knowledge is there. You take these sites like Sacsayhuaman and you take these sites like Pumapunku and you tell me, hey, go replicate that. Go do that thing that they did. And you can say, go do that thing using the tools that they had at the time. And I will tell you, I cannot do it. I do not think it is possible to do. I'm I'm a pretty capable guy. I think I'm like fairly competent and confident in a lot of things. And we've got access to an unlimited knowledge base with the internet. But there is not the knowledge that exists on how to cut those granite stones with the precision that they did, how to get consistent 90-degree right angles on an H-shaped block where every right angle is within, I think it's like 0.05 degrees of being perfect. I can do that. Like, that is impossible for me to do. I can't think of any way for me to do that. But like, even though like, I could build the Empire State Building, hypothetically. I could build the Roman Colosseum, hypothetically. Give me a lifetime. I don't think I could figure out how to do Sacsayhuaman. I do not think I could figure out how to replicate Pumapunku, especially given the tools that they have. So it had to be in my estimation and my guess, this leads me to believe that yes, it definitely, or it was someone else or something else that did these things down there.
And that something is something else could be any theory out there, right? Pick your poison, basically. That's what you're saying, right? Like if you give enough evidence for aliens, you'll be like, okay, it was aliens. If you give enough evidence for the Egyptians, you'll be like, hey, it was the Egyptians. If it was the
100%,
Denisovans or the Neanderthals, right? You just want the evidence that points to it, right? Right.
yeah.
And
You just can't look. You
I
can't show
respect
me
it.
these stones and tell me it was the Inca with bronze tools. Like, okay, yeah, I'm not buying that, buddy.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, and I've heard people say that they took the bronze tools and they used sand to kind of create a sandpaper effect or abrasive effect to do it. And you know, I don't know how they would do stuff like that, but I've done a lot of research behind it, and I've came across something, and this may not be what how it happened, because this would be in melting stone weather versus cutting. But there was this thing called Fresno glass, and I guess it's some kind of glass that they had that they used the same idea that the Greeks used to do to burn the ships that was coming on land from that one story. I can't remember what the story is off the top of my head. It was called the Greek fire. I think that's what they called it. They used some type of magnifying glass to use it. That's the way it's depicted, actually. And we know that the Greeks get their information from the Egyptians, but the Egyptians don't have the oldest pyramids, so and the machinery is not found there. But you said the machinery could be more found in Peru. Now, when you say technology, when I say technology, I think of throwing a rock to creating a bow and arrow. Bow and arrow would be a type of advanced technology versus them picking up a rock and throwing it at a deer and trying to kill a deer, because you have to be accurate for one, power, and you have to hit it in a certain place, and you got to hope that it gets knocked out, right? With a bow and arrow, you hit it in a certain spot, it's going to go down. So that would be considered an advanced type of technology. When you say advanced type of technology, what type, if you've done this research yet, what type of technology from the archaic times would be able to cut stone like that? I know it would be iron, and it would be, you know, like you said, laser or water pressure type. But what an archaic way? What are some ways that you've probably thought of that could have happened?
Well, that's the crazy part is, you know, especially down there in Peru where they're working with andesite, which is an 8 on the most scale of hardness, and diorite, which is, you know, the same thing. I cannot think of any technology that any ancient culture would have that could be able to replicate this. And I love those arguments that people make where they're like, oh, well, I remember one time I watched this video of people using a copper saw on a sandstone or a granite block in Egypt, and they were able to achieve, you know, pouring sand on it and pouring water on it. They got like 1 millimeter or 4 millimeters in 4 hours or something like that. So it ended up equating to be like 1 millimeter per hour.
Yeah,
And they were like, oh, hey, this is like, we've proved that we can cut this. This is how the Egyptians did that. And I'm like, that's just like nonsense. Like, okay, that it shows that you can make that tiny cut, but there are like, what, 5 million blocks on the Giza pyramid itself. And if you're cutting 1 millimeter per hour on each block, that was going to take a lifetime.
You can't even do one in that would take a lifetime, shit, 2-3 lifetimes.
Yeah, I remember like reading this somewhere, seeing some like TikTok post or something like that was saying the pyramid at Great Pyramid at Giza was built by Emperor Khufu, and there are like, you know, 6 million blocks in the pyramid, and in order to have completed it in the time frame that was allotted, each block would have had to been, or one block would have had to been placed exactly in the right position every 5 minutes for 20 years straight in order for them to build that pyramid. So it's like you're putting a block down every 5 minutes. Like,
let me ask you, did they say in a 24-hour period? Because I heard that same thing, but some people say in a 24-hour period, some people say within daylight hours.
I can't remember off the top of my head. It was potentially daylight hours as well, but like, I mean, still the sheer amount of labor, and then see that runs into other problems, because like we know what the basic population of Egypt was during those time periods. We have the Egyptians kept pretty good records, and it's like okay, so let's you increase the amount of people that are working on this because I mean, as Zahi Hawass says, it was a national project. We cannot
Yeah.
overlook that. I love when he says
Yeah.
that. But yeah, so like you can't exponentially increase the amount of labor force because then you're just making up numbers for people that didn't exist. Because we know that there was
Yeah.
not a lot of people living there because there just wasn't a lot of people on Earth. So it's like even if you had 10,000 workers, working on each stone or whatever it was, hypothetically, the time frame that it would have taken to get those things done, moved, and because you also think like the King's Chamber stones, they didn't come from the quarry nearby, like the
Mhm.
exterior stones. They came from the Aswan quarry,
Yeah.
or Aswan quarry, which is what 500 kilometers away. So yeah, the time frame that they give us for making that, it makes it is, it's a little bit suspect. It's a little bit
Yeah.
suspect. That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah, yeah, and that's why I brought it up. I like I said, I really like your work. You're very interesting, and people need to, if they have the opportunity, to go on the tours because you'll be able to explain to them. Um, you know, when I was talking about the Fresno glass, they was basically talking about how they could melt stone doing that. Like
Oh,
you
yeah.
can melt granite. I've seen YouTube videos on there where they melt granite using some type of magnifying glass and stuff like that, shaping and all that. And I'm glad that you're very aware of all these theories and ideas. I don't know an ancient civilization and what they had or what they could have had to do that either. It's a mystery because it's just like the time. I wouldn't want to spend all day trying to cut a centimeter into a stone. You know what I mean? That would cause more problems than anything. First of all, because for one, that doing something like that, it has to be repetitive, and you don't have enough people to be able to do that, right? Not everybody has strength to do that. You could just look at people around here and be able to be like, there's plenty of people that wouldn't be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
You
And
also had
also
to continue
the Egyptians didn't have slaves, according to Zahi Hawass. It was not built by slaves, the
that.
pyramids.
Now I could tell you, I took that class that I took from. I took another class. I want to say I can't remember what class it was taught, what it was from, but they actually said this. Oh, it was a Harvard class. I took a class from Harvard. Actually, I actually got a certificate from Harvard. It's funny you brought that up. It was about the pyramids. They actually say in that class, and I have the notes for it, that there weren't any slaves.
Yeah.
They were heavily rewarded by beer and grains. That's what the words that I remember that they said in that class. But see, it's funny you brought up the word slaves because slavery is just different places. You could just they say according to Gaddafi, who passed away, of course, he said slavery was just working for somebody else, basically, right? That's
All the
and
way.
I
Yeah.
shared that. Yeah, I shared that in just in the Green Book. I have his a book from him that he wrote called the Green Book, and that's one of the things that he talks about is slavery, about you don't have to just be bound to somebody, shackled to somebody. You can be bound and shackled to them by working for them, right? Like you have nowhere else to go, right? And just because you leave one job and go to another one doesn't mean that corporation or whatever doesn't have stocks in that other job that you have, so they still own you either way. But it's funny that you say that because in Peru, people have worked together, or Mesoamerica in America's period, it seemed like people worked together for a certain amount of time until something made them decide to work against each other. And I say that because the people always say, well, where did these people go? Where did these people go? And my idea about where people go is that they didn't go anywhere in particular or specific. They didn't disappear or something like that. They just migrated to another location that better fit their needs, right? Like, over time, the land would change. And but who do you think are the modern day people of that area, and who are they? Like, I know it had to be the group, because there has to be like festivals and stuff like that for those people over there. Have you ever attended one of those also?
Yeah, that's another great question. So one of the reasons I love being down there in the Cusco area, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is they do have that like fusion of the Spanish colonial and then the local Quechua people. So like when you think about the Inca Empire, uh, you have to think about it in kind of interesting terms because the Inca were the ruling class of people. They were like the royalty. Okay, there was like
Mm,
Inca family. So when the Incan
mm,
Empire was defeated, the Incans stopped existing, but the remainder of the people, which were a conglomeration of different peoples that were under the rule of the Incan Empire, became just assimilated into the Spanish um, nation, I guess you could say. So in the Cusco region of Peru, the local people there that were like kind of the administrative center of the Incan capital, which was Cusco, those are the people that stayed there and interbred with the Spanish. And they have, as I talked about a little bit, this amazing reverence and this fusion of the Catholicism and traditional or Aboriginal culture. So you'll find all sorts of festivals down there. And I think that like the city of Cusco has like 300 days out of the year, there's some sort of festival or parade or event happening. And it's like all these different celebrations. I remember I was living in this one town of this tiny little town of Yanahuara, which was in the Sacred Valley. And frequently, more than once per week, or I would say about once per week, I would get woken up in the morning, or we get out of bed, or be doing my yoga or doing my meditation, and there's a parade or people practicing for a parade walking down the street in the morning, 6 or 7 a.m., just doing their thing. And they have all these amazing outfits that they love to wear. And there are these traditional Cusqueño outfits that are, again, Aboriginal in the fusion of the Spanish colonial. And it's really a big part of their culture down there to have that rich heritage. And even the children, I went down there and I was astounded. I made friends with this family, and all of their children were participating in this multicultural dance. And so it was through their church, and they had each group each different group, a part of their church was assigned a different regional dance from the different country. Some had to learn a regional dance from the Amazon, some had to learn a regional dance from Cajamarca, some from Cusco. And then they came and they put all the youth, again, these are like 8 to 18-year-olds, the youth put on this dance where they're displaying these different cultural dances. And it wasn't like they weren't like the weird kids. It wasn't like the nerds or the dorks or the kids that were like homeschooled. It was like a part of like the culture of like people that were proud of down there. These were the popular kids that were doing this to be, to show who they were and be proud of their history and their whole culture and their heritage. So it really is a special place down there. And you can experience this basically anytime that you go, because as I said, there's 300 days per year where they have some sort of event going on, and each town even has their own specific holidays. One time I was riding my motorcycle through the Andes Mountains, and I happened around Carnival in February, and I happened to be driving through this town called Acomayo, and they were having their town celebration, and the whole entire town, I kid you not, hundreds of people were in the plaza having a water balloon fight and a water fight and spraying each other with water. Adults, children, grandmas, police officers. It was chaos. The culture down there is so beautiful and so rich. And it, like, we here in America, like, we really, really miss out on having this because they have that deep connection to their ancestry that we lack here. So it really is cool. Sorry, I just went off on a long tangent there.
No, I'm glad you said that. And, because you're giving your personal feelings of what you experienced there. You rode your motorcycle through the Andes. I'm a bike rider myself. I'm actually looking into buying a Harley within the next year, one of the big bodies. I don't know which one I want yet, but definitely I am a bike rider. I used to have a Yamaha R6.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
well, yeah. We got to ride different bikes down in Peru. We'll get you a little dirt bike style. R6. That might not do so well.
There's a lot of people that I don't know if you've been watching chats, but this is the first time Tara came in here, so I want to bring up your I want to bring up your tours again, because more people came in, of course. A lot of people watch these shows and stuff, and I like to keep them about an hour and a half because it's a happy point for most people. But for the next 20 minutes, what I like to talk about now is what got you into this, first of all? Because I told you my story. I was winning in Afghanistan. I was forced to retire. I didn't have nothing else that I could do. I was dealing with my problems of PTSD and my brain injury and so on and so forth. And now I have a whole setup right here in front of me where all I do is just share what I've read. I don't do anything else but just share what I've read. That's it. If you have a piece of information that you need and I've read it, I'm going to say, hey, this is what this author said from this book. I'm sure you've seen what I do. I share exactly what I've did. I'm a big Simpsons fan, so I started asking ChatGPT to implement how to implement the Simpsons in there. So you're going to see new created memes from me that include the Simpsons, because I've been watching them since 1989. I mean, I've been watching them since I was a little kid. So I've always just try to make it fun for education, because education should be fun. I used to have people tell me, when you go to school, it shouldn't be fun. The hell it shouldn't. You're a kid. You have to make it fun, right? So if you make it fun for the child to learn, they will retain the information and it'll be better for the civilization that we're talking about.
Were you like me? You grew up like hating sitting in a classroom? Was that you?
I hated it. I hated it. I hated it so much. I used to fall asleep, and I would take the only subject I had an issue in was in math. And the only reason why is because I couldn't show my work. I would look at an answer and I would be like, oh, I think I know the answer. And I'll write it down, and I couldn't show the work. And since I knew I got the answer right, but wouldn't show my work, they said I was cheating. And I went through that and I got discouraged. That's why I didn't go to college and stuff like that. Cause I was like, man, how are you going to subject somebody to where you're at, because you don't know how to do what that person is doing, you know? And it took a toll on me and stuff like that. But then I went to the military, and now I'm doing this. And like I said, all I do is share what I've read. But it was because of a journey that it took me through. Like, my book is called Journey Through the Origins of History. It's not telling you what I'm telling you is right. It's telling you what I've learned from reading. And that's what I like about you, is your boots on ground. You're another individual. I told a couple of people this. I have a list of individuals, and I wrote them in my book of Josh the Ancient, of individuals that I give credit to for helping me for certain things. You're an individual that I give credit to, because when you do your videos on these places, you do them. You don't have a film crew. You do them naturally. I think, like, are you holding like a phone or something like that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I bought a nice phone and a nice camera so that I could, as possible, just get out there and start filming.
So I'm glad you said that, because it feels natural to me.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of people who are trying to share knowledge today, they're substituting AI for everything. They're creating videos through AI. They're using AI voice. They're using AI information. Everything about it is about AI. They plug in a couple of things and boom, they make a video, and that's AI.
Shoot, even some big channels too. Like, have you seen?
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
that's what I'm saying.
The AI stuff on a couple of them too.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that is what I'm saying. They go into this, and it takes out the soul of wanting the knowledge. You go boots on ground because you are afforded the opportunity to go to Peru. Eventually, one day, I will have that opportunity. Right now, my opportunity is checking stuff in my own backyard. What I mean is in the United States of America, as far as what I can do right now here, right? Mm-hmm. Until I have the opportunity to go to the places and do it. And I went to North Carolina and, went to the mountain up there. I've go to, different museums all around here in Georgia. I'm going to Florida in a couple of weeks. I'm going back to North Carolina in another couple of weeks. And, I want to do these things because, and what I did is I have one camera. I have a Nikon P950, which I can take regular pictures from distances and stuff like that and take cool pictures. And then I use my little iPhone where I go through the museums and record myself talking about what I see and stuff, because it's more natural. People, like you said earlier, almost an hour ago, you said that so many people are concerned or towards Egypt. They're so worried about Egypt, more about understanding what Egypt is, but they forget what happens in Peru. And I've known a lot of people who talk about Egypt and Peru. You can find a lot of symbolism and similarities and relationships between the two, right?
Yeah.
But that area is basically on the same line. Like, I have the whole map behind me. So you got Africa right here. So they say humans started somewhere in South Africa right here. This can come across right here easy. Why couldn't the same people start it right here? Like people started here simultaneously, the same people that started right there.
Yeah.
And they went back and forth. They went here, they went there.
Yeah, well, we
And
have
that's
all
why
those
you
old
can-
maps, and I just saw another one the other day, like some old Chinese map that depicts North and South America and Antarctica from the 1600s. So, like, somebody was traveling it, somebody was mapping it. You have the
Yeah.
Orontius Phineas map, you have the Admiral Piri Reis map. Like,
Yeah.
somebody was doing some stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I get the argument that people say, "Oh, humans started in Africa." I understand that argument, but I also understand if I'm looking at the map, why wouldn't it be able to start right here, right? Just literally right across. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mhm.
literally right across.
Yeah.
So my idea is this: is that because I wanted to talk to you, and hopefully, if you're willing, we can have a second discussion about this because
Definitely.
this can
It's been
go on
great.
for a while.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. Civilization started because, just like you said, basically people working together and compassion and all these other things. Lil Vibe talked about his idea when he brought it up on there, and it's interesting to me because of the simple fact that if you don't work together as a group of individuals, you won't know, right? And if you don't work together, then that means you don't want to know. You only want your narrative to go ahead. But I feel like once those two worlds started talking to each other, that's when we started building our civilizations to where we're at right now with Teslas and self-driving cars, because people were able to work together. I know that there's stories in Europe and Mesopotamia that they was looking for what they call fountain of youth. Gilgamesh was looking for something that kept him alive long enough. Those are found in many places in the Americas, from Florida to, I've read, to Peru. I've read to somewhere in I want to say it's in Mexico City, somewhere near Mexico City. There was one in there, but the fountain of youth has been found on the opposite side of the world. These people traveled because they was looking for the fountain of youth, right? So it makes me think, what was the Americas, and was Peru really the location where, or is it one of the locations that started where there's great civilization people of Egypt communicating with the great civilization of the Peruvians, right? We don't know. We absolutely don't know. But what we do know is that from what you shared today is that the machinery, they don't have pyramids like Sudan does, like a school type thing, but they have machinery that would show that could have been like something like that, right?
Yeah, there was, I mean, you don't have the machinery down there, but you get the remnants of the machine. You can see like, the tool marks
remnants,
left. So yeah, it's like, yeah, something was cutting into bedrock down there. Something was doing stuff that we do today with iron and steel and diamond tip chisels and, all sorts of water jets and precision and tractors and engines, not human labor and ropes.
Yeah. And that makes sense to me. I know Egypt have places where they have, stones that's cut and so on and so forth like that. But it always goes back to my idea that those aren't the oldest pyramids. So now we got to go to the places that have the oldest pyramids, and where did that machinery come from? Because maybe possibly, like you, and I like how you harp on it all the time. You always say that it wasn't these individuals with this technology. It had to have been somebody else. And let me ask you, what is the number one place that you think that it possibly came from? And we'll end it right there, because I think that would probably be the best one. Like, where do you think that, okay, if this knowledge didn't come from the people that live there, where do you think that's your best Batman detective skills showing you that it possibly came from, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think all these places around the world that we've talked about, some places in Egypt, Turkey, definitely, most likely Malta, like Göbekli Tepe, and a lot of Japan, the places where you find these exquisite stonework. I believe that this was the remnants of an interconnected society that existed, or maybe not interconnected society, or at least, yeah, interconnected in some way, interconnected society that existed during the last ice age. So pre-Younger Dryas. And that's where I think a lot of this stonework comes from, the remnants of these stones. Because for me, and you talked about this a little bit earlier, I want to, applaud you for bringing up this point. We're all working with different pieces of the puzzle, right? Our human history is not, it's not a linear story. You can't sit down and write it down. Chapter 1, this happened. Chapter 2, this happened. It literally is. People are digging up puzzle pieces from in the dirt and then trying to put them together. I think that the puzzle that people have put together, that the mainstream archaeology has put together with the pieces available, is wrong. There are pieces that don't fit. There are these examples in Peru where you have technology or you have examples of technology that the Incan can't do. You have Göbekli Tepe that was intentionally buried, 10,800 BC. You have the hypogeum in Malta that has astronomical alignment to 12,000 years ago. In Bolivia, you have Tiwanaku that has astral alignment to the rising sun and the solstice 14,000 years ago. So all of these things to me are more puzzle pieces. And instead of saying, oh, hey, they don't fit into the previously existing puzzle, my thought is, well, that's because the previously existing puzzle is wrong, because you're not counting for this other aspect of it, is that because you're trying to say, hey, this is where it started, 6,000 BC in the Indus Valley, the cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia, and they're building everything on that framework. Well, you have to destroy that framework and you have to build the frame a little bit bigger, because there are pieces that are older, and the pieces that you have that we know about don't fit into the puzzle that you have. So that's what I think is all of these things that we've talked about are just indicators to me that there was a civilization that existed that was able to move across the globe and that was able to do these things with stone all across the world. And we see the remnants of it today. And a big indicator of these things that are remnants of a past civilization is that you find them on the bottom. You find these megalithic stones on the bottom with stuff built on top, like you go to Baalbek in Lebanon. Trilithon stones, those are all at the base, with the Roman stuff and the clear stuff that we know is Roman, because we know what Roman construction looks like, is all built on top, even though it's attributed all to the Roman. Same things happens at Machu Picchu. You can see clear delineation of, well, we know this was exactly how the Inca left it, but the Incan stuff on top is far shittier construction quality than the stuff on the bottom, like drastically different. So that's kind of what my whole theory is. I've got a video about it that I post on my YouTube channel called The Megalithic Mystery, where I kind of break down a lot of these evidences in more detail. But for me, that's really what it is. And I could be wrong. Again, I'm looking at the same puzzle pieces and trying to fit it together into a different picture. But that picture could be wrong. And these puzzle pieces that we have, these things that don't fit, there could be a completely sound, logical, reasonable explanation for that doesn't require a crazy person like me to put these fantastical ideas to. But as it stands, I think the evidence points very firmly in that direction.
I like that. That's a good way to end it. I really appreciate that. Definitely great information. Let everybody know where they can find your information at again. And also don't forget the thing with you and Cody and Dave. Don't forget your tours and then what you have upcoming.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, Tyrone. Thank you for letting me come on the show and talk about this stuff. It's been a great conversation. I really like talking to you, and we'll have to do this again, but you can find me on YouTube, Megalithic Mystery. It's kind of difficult to find, so a great way to search is just Ancient Explorations Peru. You'll pull up a bunch of my videos because I've been posting them that way. We can also post it in the chat here. Then on X, Megalithic Mystery. If you want to follow our new news show, Breaking Ancient News, on YouTube, that's an easy one to find.
Yep. And I highly recommend it. Very, very interesting. 3 guys, 3 gentlemen, 3 knowledgeable scholars. So definitely be on the lookout for that. I'll be promoting that. I'll put your stuff into this thing a little later, but I appreciate everybody that's coming and listening, and thank you again. I appreciate it, Aaron.
One more thing, go on our latest video. We're doing a promotion while we're launching this new channel. For the top comment on each episode we drop, you can chance to win a free autographed hat.
Oh.
So free if you guys drop a comment on that new video there on YouTube. So top comment.
All right, yeah, definitely. Hey, definitely look into that. That's awesome. Very awesome. Very awesome.
Who doesn't like free shit?
Right. Well,
Not as
thank
cool
you.
as your
Thanks
hat,
again.
but still a cool hat.
Hey, before I end the stream, I let everybody know why I wear this hat. So I said it a couple of times. When I was a little kid, I always wanted cowboy boots, and my parents never bought them. So then I've turned about 40 years old, and I was like, man, I'm gonna go get me some cowboy boots. So I went to the local cowboy store and got me a cowboy boots, and dude said, man, you'll look perfect in this hat. And I was like, seriously? And he said, yeah. He said, get this hat. And I got it. And ever since then, it's been like my good luck charm. Like everything's good has been happening to me. So I wear it. And now it's part of my, I guess you could say, my personality. So when I go out there to these places, because I call myself the local historian here, I have a TikTok and Rumble account just of local places from, North Carolina all the way through Georgia. I'm slowly updating it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why I definitely glad that you noticed that, because I've been getting a lot of compliments about it. But I appreciate it, Aaron. Thank you so much, man, bro.
Real quick, I want to show you something.
Yeah.
When you come down to Peru, they've got amazing leather workers down there. And I say amazing, maybe not the best in the world, but they are so flippin' cheap. So I got this leather hat. We're going to get you a hat made. I've got my guy Lorenzo. He makes these hats here. But this leather hat, this is all leather. And it was just $35. Custom made, custom fit to my head. Like, so we're going to get you one of these. We can get it in black too. We'll get you a hat when you come down to Peru, but they're super cheap down there, and like handmade leather hat.
Man, I appreciate that so much, man. I appreciate
that so much. We'll get you set up.
Thank you, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again, Tyrone. You have a good one, man. Thanks for having me.